Now that we've introduced the method for solving word problems, let's get a better understanding with an example. Let's say that the company Apple releases iPhone 17 with new AI features and the company sells more phones than they did with iPhone 16. Specifically, the number of iPhone 17s sold is twice the number of iPhone 16s sold. Plus 12 million. If Apple sold 50 million iPhone 16s and 40 million iPhone 15s, then how many iPhone 17s did it sell? All right, that is our word problem. Let's bring out step 1 from our method. Step 1 is to understand the problem. So first of all, do you know all the words in the word problem? You might have heard of Apple and the iPhones that they make. You might have heard of AI, artificial intelligence. Other than that, everything seems pretty straightforward. So we can give that a check mark. On to the next question. What are you looking for? Well, usually it'll be in the last sentence of the word problem. What we're looking for is how many iPhone 17s did Apple sell? We can make a note of that. Let's say number of iPhone 17s sold. All right. What information are you given? Let's mark that in purple. So in the first sentence, we see that Apple releases iPhone 17 and they sell more phones than they did with iPhone 16. That's some useful information. So our answer in the end for the number of iPhone 17s has to be bigger than the number of iPhone 16s that were sold. Okay, on to that final question. What requirements are given? Let's mark that in green. So at this point, we know we're looking for the number of iPhone 17s sold. We know that the number has to be more than the number of iPhone 16 sold. So are there any other requirements or conditions or specifications that were given? Well, in our second sentence, we're told, specifically, the number of iPhone 17 sold is twice the number of iPhone 16 sold, plus 12 million. So that is an important detail. Now that we've answered our 4 questions, we should have a pretty good understanding of the problem. We know all the words, we know what we're looking for, we've identified the information we're given, and the requirements. So now we can move on to step 2. Step 2 is to make a plan. And we have a number of tools here to help us make our plan. The first one, let's ask ourselves, have you seen this type of problem before? Well, we just started the class, and we're just now learning about word problems. Let's say no. This is the first time we've seen this type of problem. Is all of the info in the problem useful, or is some of it unnecessary? Let's take a look at our problem here. So it seems like this problem focuses on iPhone 17s and iPhone 16s. In step 1, we saw that our info and our requirements both deal with iPhone 16s and iPhone 17s. So it seems kind of weird that we have some information here about iPhone 15s. It doesn't seem like that's useful for this problem. So let's mark that with a big question mark. Who knows, it might be useful, but right now it kind of stands out. Why are we randomly talking about iPhone 15s? All right, let's keep going. Looking at our next question, do you know any useful equations or formulas? Well, I can't think of any equations or formulas off the top of my head. Again, we just started this class. Let's see if the word problem gives us any clues. So looking at the second sentence between the green brackets, we're told that the number of iPhone 17s sold is twice the number of iPhone 16 sold, plus 12 million. Is there a way to turn that into an equation? So we're told that the number of iPhone 17s sold in the millions, we're looking at millions of phones, is equal to twice the number of iPhone 16s sold, again in millions of phones, plus 12 million. And we can just write 12 since we're talking about millions of phones. That looks like an equation to me. We have something equal to something else. That sentence from the word problem told us that the number of iPhone 17 sold is twice the number of iPhone 16 sold, plus 12 million. We can turn that into a useful equation. All right, so that was a really helpful tool. Let's go ahead and look at the last two questions just to see if there's something that can help us. Do you know a related problem or concept that can help you here? Well, we've learned about equations. And the equations that we looked at, they kind of look similar to this one we have with the iPhones. But it was usually with the variable x, right? We'd have something like 3x on one side equal to x plus some other number, and we were solving for x. The equation we have with our iPhones looks kind of similar. It's written a little differently, but it's the same kind of idea, same pattern. All right, so we know a related concept. We created a useful formula. Let's take a look at our last question, just in case. Can you draw a table, graph, or picture? I'm not sure. It doesn't seem like there's anything we can draw here. Let's just put not sure. All right, so those are some tools for creating our plan. And it seems like this tool right here was the most helpful. We want to find the number of iPhone 17s that Apple sold, and it looks like we have an equation here that can figure it out. The word problem tells us the number of iPhone 16s that were sold. So our plan is going to be to use this equation, fill in that information about the iPhone 16s, and get our answer. All right, that means we can move on to step 3, and we'll carry out the plan. Let's bring down that useful equation that we just made. So we need to find the number of iPhone 16s that were sold. We can go back to our word problem. And looking at that last sentence, we see that Apple sold 50 million iPhone 16s. Since we're talking about millions of phones in this equation, we can just put 50. Let's simplify this equation. We have the number of iPhone 17 sold is equal to 2 times 50 plus 12. Simplifying that, 2 times 50 is 100. And 100 plus 12 is 112. So we can say that Apple sold 112 million iPhone 17s. So we carried out our plan and got to an answer. Now we need to take a look at step 4 of our method. That is, check the solution. Is your answer reasonable? Our word problem told us that Apple sold more iPhone 17s than iPhone 16s. The number of iPhone 16 sold was 50 million, so our answer checks out there. It's bigger than 50 million. And it also makes sense that our answer is in the millions, because millions of people around the world buy iPhones. So, yes, our answer is reasonable. So, we can be confident in our answer that Apple sold 112 million iPhone 17s. We got to this answer by following our method for solving word problems, and the method helped us step through the problem. As I mentioned before, it's very useful to have this method written out on a piece of paper, and you can use it to guide you anytime you're working on a word problem.